Hello, everybody. This is Bob Harvie, County Commissioner. Welcome to this webinar where we're going to talk about the Bucks Back to Work grant that has been launched that we are hoping helps as many people as we can, as many business owners as we can. Joining me today is Jeff Fields and Deanna Giorno from the County of Bucks and Jon Mercer from Stacksco here in Doylestown. Just by a little bit of background, we here at Bucks County are doing our best to do what we can to help out small businesses. We know how difficult this has been. We've heard from a lot of small businesses who are very concerned about the fact that there was state aid and federal aid, different programs that in many cases they just couldn't get access to. We've heard a lot of stories, and that's from not just the county, but across the country, that quite a few businesses just couldn't get the applications in when they, in time. It was a first come, first serve for some things. And in some cases, the bigger companies that had a staff that could put together the numbers quickly were able to get money, and some of the smaller businesses weren't. So we're very conscious of that. We're doing our best to help with that. Before we get into the grant, I did want to point out that we do have in Bucks County some volunteers, including Jon Mercer, who's with us today, on the Economic Recovery Task Force. That is a group of volunteers who represent all different kinds of industries and experiences here in Bucks County. And they have been working with the county to put together some guidelines and policies that we are putting up on our website. And I'm going to ask for our technical staff to put up our website so we can show you where it is real fast. So this is the main page, the buckscounty.org. You'll see in the right-hand corner the COVID page, and we click on that. And there's all kinds of information on this page, which has been updated over the last few months. The top, along the top menu bar in green, you see the Economic Resources portal. You click on that, and that takes you to the portal that has information about the grant. And if you scroll down, we'll see there's other buttons you can hit for county resources, state resources, federal resources. There's industry-specific guidance. There is also, as you see there, the Bucks County Health Department has put together a sign which you can print, put in your door window. PPE and cleaning supplies, resources for employees, and also some news. So those are all things available to you. When that's going to continue to be updated as the task force puts some more information in there. So that information, again, we're putting together as it comes in, updating it to make sure it's as current as it can be. So if we kind of go back to the main page now. So we know that several weeks ago, the federal government passed the CARES Act, and that CARES Act did set aside a lot of money for states and also for counties, bigger counties like Bucks, to use to fight the pandemic in every way we could. A lot of that money has been used, or money has been used for PPE, for paying for some of the personnel we've been employing to do different things to fight the coronavirus. And there was a provision for the money to be used for grants to help businesses who were suffering. The counties made the decision to put aside $6 million in the first round. I just want to make sure that's clear. This is a first round of funding for businesses. The overview, the guidance has been up for a couple days now on our website. And that guidance will be going over in a few minutes by Jeff Fields and Deanna Giorno as they talk about the guidance and the application process. This was certainly something new for the county in terms of putting together a grant program like this. Some other counties have done this before in terms of grants from the counties themselves. Bucks wasn't necessarily set up that way. We have different agencies that do this kind of thing, but this was a project we wanted to make sure we did from the county itself. We did take a look at different grant programs, specifically Chester County's Main Street program, and we put together some parameters for businesses that would fit in those parameters that we could help them, which we felt was the best way to help the largest majority, the largest number of businesses here, especially small businesses. We did put some parameters in terms of numbers of employees, in terms of how long the business has been in existence, and also in terms of how much money it made. So those were things we made decisions on after a lot of discussion. No matter what decisions we made, there were going to be some businesses excluded, but we feel comfortable. We feel good about the fact that a lot of businesses have been included, and specifically ones that may have missed out on some other grant program opportunities. This is a grant. This does not have to be paid back. And so we do want to dedicate the rest of this time we have, about 50 minutes or so, to an explanation of the program itself, what you're going to need to apply, walking you through the application process. And we also have Jon Mercer, who's agreed to sort of moderate in terms of questions. And so you can submit your questions if you have any, and people can, some have already been submitted. And we'll get to those questions a little later on. And if you don't get a chance to have your question answered in this webinar, you can obviously still email the county. And I think we're using the Bucks Back to Work at bucks.org. Is that buckscounty.org? No? Okay, so Bucks Back to Work.
Bob, there's an email right now that we're using for the questions during the session now.
Go ahead.
And that is, that's ertf@buckscounty.org. The letter stands for Economic Recovery Task Force at buckscounty.org, ERTF.
Okay, thank you, John. So even after this webinar is over, if you still have questions, you can email bucksbacktowork@buckscounty.org. And also this webinar is being recorded and will be posted so that you can kind of go back and look at it. If you have other friends or relatives who have businesses that didn't get a chance to see this, you can refer them to this so they can get that guidance. So I'm going to turn it over at this point to Jeff Fields and Deanna Giorno so they can walk you through the grant program.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate all the support you've given for this program, and we are looking forward to the opportunity to support our small businesses. We thought it would be best to take some time to go through the application in detail, which has been posted to the county website. I'm going to take us through the first part of it, and Deanna's going to take us through the last part, and then we'll field some questions. So we can throw the application up onto the screen. Great, so this is the Bucks Back to Work Small Business Grant, and we're gonna, the next slide, you'll see the top of the application. Great, so here we are. This is what you'll be seeing when you're going to fill out the application. We thought it would just be helpful to take you through the different points so there's no confusion and you have an opportunity to look at this later if needed. The application starts off with the list of required documents that we're gonna go through later in section D. Many of you may have seen this in the overview we put out a little earlier in the week. Some key points: we would like the everything to be submitted in one email. So, you know, you're gonna be attaching separate attachments, so tax returns, profit and loss, bank statements, but put them all in one email. And when you do that email, if you note in red there, the company name _ BBTW Bucks Back to Work. So that would be the subject line of your email. And it's going to help us make sure we can get through these quickly. So again, one email with all the attachments that we're going to go through in section D, as well as this application, and then putting your company name _ BBTW in the subject line. We are going to have staff on hand to pick up the applications, and you'll see that. So Deanna actually will be available to be doing this between 10 and 4 on May the 26th. The admin building, which is 55 East Court Street. You can, if you encounter security or anything, you can just let them know that you're dropping off the small business grant application. And we will process the paper applications. We're not accepting applications by mail. So our preferred method would be for you to email these. We do have the security email set up for your information, but if you do want to have a paper application, then you can do so during those hours. The overall time of submission, it is just a one-day submission, so we would encourage you to prepare your application and your attachments, have it all ready, and then we will be accepting the applications between the hours of 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. on the 26th. Okay, moving on to the next. At the top of our application, we are collecting your business name and address. You're going to see we want the primary owner name and title, as well as the email address for contact. We have a drop down of the different of the municipalities in Bucks County, so that you can just choose which municipality. There's a little guidance there. If you have multiple locations, we put some guidance. If you have questions on that, let us know, but we can try to address that, so it should be clear. Then we're going to move to the narrative portions of the application. So these are text boxes. We ask you to keep your answers brief. You don't need to attach separate documents for this, so keep the answer to what you can put in this text box. We're going to, in the beginning, ask you just to describe what your business does and how COVID-19 has impacted your business. When you are discussing impacts, you can reference things like business closure, reduced hours, reduced operations, any specific financial metrics that you're able to reference, such as lost revenue or payroll reductions, having to lay folks off. Note all of that. We do capture some of that later in section C, as Deanna is going to go over, but this is an opportunity to talk about it in a more narrative form. There's so you'll see that there, that the opportunity to discuss that in two different areas. Okay, so now moving on to the next slide. So here we're talking about how the grant is going to be assisting your business to remain open if it is open, or to reopen after restrictions are lifted. Keep in mind that the grant is intended to be used for working capital costs. This could be payroll, rent, mortgage, supplies, and other operating expenses that are not covered by an existing COVID-related grant or loan. So we don't want double dipping as it would relate to other COVID resources that you've already received money for, but if you have not received any funds, or the funds you have were not sufficient to cover expenses, that's an appropriate use. That is gonna, some of you that might have more accounting background, that typically operating expenses is not gonna include the cost of goods sold. We are including that. So we're really looking at all of your expenses when we talk about this, that you would be necessary for you to keep the business running. So it is okay if you have a cost of goods sold, it is okay to include that as an operating expense. We're essentially looking at your gross revenue and then taking the net income, so all expenses, and then looking at the net income to look at that as operating expenses. Below that question, you're going to see a list of any funding that you've received since the onset of the pandemic. So relative to my earlier comment, if you have applied for funding, we would want you to put it there, the amount you received, and the intended utilization of that funding. The different types of funding can include unemployment insurance and other things is listed in the overview and in the document. If you have questions, let us know. One thing is that if you have applied for funding, but you know you're receiving it, we'd want you to list it. But if you do not know you've applied and you are awaiting approval, you do not know if you're going to get the funding, do not include it here. Moving on to the next section. All right, so here we have just a simple outline of your ownership interest. So if you have if you have multiple owners, we would want you to list any owners that have above a 20% interest in the company. Just to understand that we do expect to have a high number of grants coming in. We're not going to be able to fund all of them. And so as a way to try to spread out the money as much as we can, we are not permitting applicants to submit more than one application for a business in which the applicant has an ownership interest of 20% or greater. And so that's one of the reasons we're asking this question. And moving on. Here, the final narrative question is a little bit more free form to provide any additional information about your business that you would like us to know. You could talk about it being a family business, how long it's in operation, the impact your business has on the area where it is located, what other things it might do that you would want us to know about. There's really no set requirements there. And then finally, to end section A, we're going to have a drop down where you would just select the industry that best describes your business. It should be fairly intuitive. Choose the option that is the most appropriate answer. If you can't decide, there is an other category. Moving to section B. So we wanted to try to break down eligibility as simply as possible, given any such program has some complexities. And so this is really intended to be a self-check. Answer no to any of these questions, it means that you're not eligible for this funding. So It starts with a question about gross revenue, which is that it needs to be less than $700,000 annually. Again, this is focusing on some of our small businesses. So the gross revenue, I know we had some questions come in advance of this, just wanted to be clear, it is gross, not net. And typically that's gonna, if you're not sure where to find that, it is typically the highest number on your tax return. Now you are gonna be submitting your tax return as well. So, we will look at that. But that is typically what the gross rate, you can, if you're not sure, gross revenue is typically your highest number. We do ask that the business be headquartered in Bucks County. If you do happen to have locations outside of the county, you have to earn the majority of your revenue at Bucks County locations and be able to demonstrate that. You have to have incurred at least $20,000 in expenses in 2019. It's one of the questions there. And the business has to have been in operation since at least 2018. Passive businesses aren't eligible. The IRS definition of a passive business is essentially either rental activities or a business in which you don't materially participate. If you are not sure about that, there is IRS guidance around passive businesses that you can look at if you're not sure how to answer that question. But generally, the definition is either landlords and rental activities and businesses where you're not really actively participating. And then the final question confirms that the business is not a franchise or does not have a franchise agreement. So that concludes section B. For section C, Deanna Giorno, our Economic Development Program Manager, is going to take us through.
Thank you, Jeff. So section C is for additional required information. This section asks businesses to pull key data from their required documentation that's outlined in section D to assist in our review team so that they're able to make a quick turnaround with the applications. The first question, is your business currently operating even at a reduced level, is a yes or no question, and the answer should be selected from the available drop-down menu on the right. The second question is to be gathered from the documentation you're providing in section D. It asks for how much your business revenue has decreased over the last 10 weeks as compared to the same period of time last year. We request that this figure be represented as a percentage as a quick indication of the loss you're facing this quarter compared to the same quarter of fiscal year 2019. The third question should be represented as a dollar amount and asks, how much cash did your business hold as of December 31st, 2019? This figure should be pulled directly from your required documentation that's asked in number 4 of section D, and we'll go over that in just a moment. The fourth question asks, how much cash does your business currently hold? This figure should also be pulled from the documentation that's asked in number 4 of section D. And the next three questions, are asking about staffing. So please use staffing totals through March 1st of 2020 to answer these questions 5 and 6. The final question in this section asks if you had to lay off or furlough employees during the COVID-19 business shutdown and as per the requirements from the state. So please only list however many employees you're currently furloughed or laid off as one number. If you initially furloughed employees and have already brought them back onto your payroll, please do not consider them for this question. If you would like to explain any staffing concerns and would like to break out between furloughed and those that you had to let go, please do so in the additional information box that's part of section A. So that's section C. Next, we'll move on to section D, and that's the required documentation. So if you have specific questions relative to any of this information, please send a separate email with your inquiry to bucksbacktowork@buckscounty.org by Monday, May 25th at 5 p.m. This inbox will be monitored over the holiday weekend, and we'll do our best to get back to you by the end of the day on Monday so that you'll be able to submit confidently on Tuesday. The first required document is a completed application form, so please fill out the form that we were reviewing with you today and submit that back with the rest of your documentation. The second is historic income and expense information through one of two methods. The first method is a full and complete copy of your 2018 and 2019 business tax return. If you have not completed your 2019 tax return due to the COVID deadline extension for filing, please submit an internally prepared statement of your profit and losses for fiscal year 2019. The second method is to report on Schedule C or F of the owner's personal tax return, a full and complete copy of the owner's 2018 and 2019 federal tax return. If the owner's 2019 tax return is not completed due to the COVID deadline extension for filing, please submit an internally prepared statement of profit and loss for fiscal year 2019. The third required document is a 2020 year-to-date financial statement. This should include a monthly profit and loss report run through April 30th, 2020, or a month to date up to May 20th of 2020. Additionally, for this requirement, we ask for the most recent prepared balance sheet. If you cannot generate these documents yourself, we will provide a sample document for you on our website and portal so that you may utilize and submit it with your application. For the fourth document, please provide bank statements to demonstrate cash on hand as of December 31st, 2019, and a screenshot or printout of your current account balance for business dated any date between May 21st to May 22nd of 2020. The fifth document being requested is a full and complete copy of the business owner's 2019 federal tax return. This document will be requested for any owner that owns 20% or more of the business. And if this document is unavailable due to COVID filing extensions, applicants may submit a 2018 tax return. And the final document being requested is a recent completed W-9 form for the business owner or owners. So that's section D. As I said before, if you have any questions relative to any of these documents, please feel free to send your specific questions to bucksbacktowork@buckscounty.org, and I'd be happy to answer them in a timely manner. That's all for section D, so now we'll move on to section E. Section E is the last section of this application form. This section asks for your signature and date to verify that the information you have provided is true and correct to the best of your knowledge. Please be sure that you thoroughly read through all of the language in the certification before you submit your application. And congratulations! After you finish this section, you have completed the Bucks Back to Work Small Business Application grant application. Whether you submit it via email or handed it in person at the administration building on Tuesday, May 26th, please be assured that your application will be thoroughly reviewed, and we will strive to provide notification of your status within 10 business days. So now we will take any questions from applicants.
Okay, thank you. Jon Mercer has been handling some of the questions. We'll let Jon be the, MC here to direct questions to Deanna or Jeff Fields.
Sounds good. And if you have any other questions that you want to submit, send them via email to ertf@buckscounty.org. And we're monitoring that real time, so we'll try to address as many as we can. All right, so the first question here, from a business that does not do monthly financial statements, profit and loss, or balance sheets. They're sole proprietorship that uses Schedule C. Are those other documents, is that a requirement to be considered for the grant?
Yeah, so that is, we are asking for that information. We are aware that some businesses might not generate year-to-date financials or monthly profit and loss statements in that regard. Again, Deanna had referenced it. We will have it right alongside the application, which is a simple Excel spreadsheet that provides basic guidance on what a profit and loss statement is and a balance sheet and a way that you could produce that from just the basic numbers you have on your business. So this is just simply, and in any given month, the revenue you brought in, the sales, and or lack thereof, and then the expenses that you have. And that is going to show your, again, your costs and your total sales is going to be your profit and loss, and that seeing that on a monthly basis is what we need. So if you have these and you can generate them, that would be best. If you do not, we are providing a way that, and some basic guidance that you can do it yourself. And the same thing with the balance sheet.
Okay, next question regarding signature. Does the application need a wet signature or will digital suffice?
So we would prefer a wet signature, but we will also accept a digital signature as well.
Okay. This one's a little longer, but the application process fact sheet under the documents to gather, It states that info can be submitted through one of the following methods: 2018 and 2019 business tax return. If report schedule CRF, then the 2018 and 2019 tax returns and 2020 year-to-date financial statements. But on the application itself, in section D3, it does ask for the 2020 year-to-date financial statements as well as 2018 and 2019 business tax returns. Question is, do you indeed require the 2020 year-to-date financial statements along with the business tax returns?
Yes, we would want, if you have your 18 and 19 returns, we would want what you have for 2020 year-to-date financial statements as well. Again, if you can generate that with accounting software with your accountant, great. If not, you can use the Excel spreadsheet I referenced earlier to just give the basics of your revenue and costs over the past 5 months.
Okay. Next question. Will the corporate and personal information we provide be confidential, or will it be public and subject to right to know requests?
So we would have to reference the right to know law to get a better idea of that question. But that is something, if you send me an email to bucksbacktowork.org, I'd be bucksbacktowork@buckscounty.org. I'd be happy to look into that with our right to know officer for you.
Okay. Next question. Does it make any difference what time the application goes into the system on Tuesday?
No, it doesn't. This is not a first come, first serve program. We did leave it open for, it is just the one day. We tried to make it as large of a window as possible because we're expecting a large amount of applications, but there will be no time stamping related to the scoring of the applications or how they're reviewed.
All right. What if we own 2 businesses? Can we file 2 times?
No, you may only file for one business.
All right. Next question. How long do we think the process will be until funds will be given?
Well, as Deanna mentioned, our goal is, depending on the amount of applications, is to try to have them all reviewed in 10 business days. We want to give each application the time it deserves since these are your businesses. After that review is done, we would be able to quickly make decisions and start reaching out around funding. So again, with a 10-day review time, we're then hoping to turn around and be able to fund the applications shortly thereafter. Commissioner, do you have any other thoughts on timing?
No, I mean, obviously, it's a great question, certainly a question people are concerned about. But I think you stated it well. We're hoping to have it turned around in 10 business days. The county has hired a third-party business. So the county hired a separate business that does analytics professionally. And so it's a company that is used to crunching a lot of information like this. So we're hopeful that they can do this in a very efficient manner.
And it's one of the reasons that the application is in the format it's in, and that we're asking you to have the formatting in terms of the subject line. I think to the question that came out about the signature, if you are able, the W-9 should have a signature on it. If you are able to provide a scan page with a signature, if you have that ability on that line, that would be great. But we do want the the PDF, the application form ideally in its original form, which again will make it the easiest for us to process these things quickly. So you don't have to scan the whole PDF, but if you were able to send us the original PDF filled out with the one page that has a signature on it, with that scanned as a separate attachment, that would be fine. If not, you can just input it digitally, and we'll also use the W-9 and contact you if we need any more information.
All right. Just a reminder on the email, if you want to submit any questions, there are more, but if you want to get some more in, the email address to send to right now is ertf@buckscounty.org. Next question. Will we receive a confirmation email that our application was received on the day we submit?
Yes, we are hoping that your application has been received.
Okay. Next question. For Schedule C businesses, if we have only the Schedule C prepared from our 2019 returns, but not our personal full personal tax return yet completed, will submitting just that Section C suffice?
The question is about the 2019 return, if you do not yet have the full return completed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole personal return, but you have Schedule C prepared.
I would say submit what information you can. If you don't have the Schedule C, certainly would be the most helpful. If there's any information missing there, we might need to, that's why we said that if you don't have your return completed, we would be looking for the internally prepared statement of profit and loss. So again, same format as that Excel spreadsheet. So it would probably be best to try to do that internal preparation if you don't have the whole return. But in general, the Schedule C would have a lot of the information we would need.
Okay. Let's see. All right. So last question I have here right now. I'm currently watching the webinar. I do not have any employees, but I have contractors. Should contractors be considered employees for the purpose of this application?
That's a really great question. And I think that that is definitely going to depend on the type of business that you have. If it's a seasonal business, obviously it's going to, your staffing needs are going to be different than a business that is open year round. Those specific questions, I'd be happy to talk to you about, but for the purposes of generalizing for the webinar, I think that you should definitely consider those employees, but clarify that they are contracted employees in the additional information block under Section A.
Yeah, and you'll note in Section C, it does, where it asks the questions about employees, it does say you can include 1099 staff. So if you're talking about 1099, they can be included. But if you're not clear, either send us, like Deanna said, add any clarifying information in that section.
All right, we're getting some more questions in. Does receiving the PPP disqualify my business from receiving the grant?
It does not. So we did think a lot about this, but we do recognize that some of the forms of assistance were not necessarily sufficient to cover all of the business's operations. So we are asking you to tell us what you've received, PPP, EIDL, right? There's multiple different types of assistance that are specifically for COVID. We would like you to disclose what that is. I believe it was on Section A where we have the funding source listed there. So you'll see funding source, amount received, and use. Just the fact that you received money does not disqualify you for the grant. It will be considered in the review as we try to assess need for our different businesses, but we would encourage you still to submit regardless of whether you've received funding or not, just to let us know what you have received and how you're using it.
Okay. Next, we have, for large documents, such as tax returns, would Google Drive or Dropbox links suffice, or do you want them all resized to avoid the downloading process?
We do request that any digital application be submitted through the bucksbackttowork@buckscounty.org email address. We do not currently have any sort of Google Drive set up for applications. So if you could please resize them and submit them through that that email address, that would be best. If you are not comfortable doing that, you are more than welcome to come and meet me at the administration building on Tuesday, May 26th between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. to hand in your application in a paper format.
If you do have trouble resizing a document and for some reason, the email inbox should be able to handle whatever you send. But if it's some really huge documents, please do resize them. You can include a Google Drive link if we are able to access it, but it's not going to be the attach. We would much rather that you send attachments, and like Deanna said, and if you can, otherwise to bring it in on paper. So I think that's the better way to go to make sure that we do get everything. If for some reason an email does bounce back, contact us. In a worst case scenario, you could send an email with your company name and with a 1 behind it and then a 2 to denote that denote that you were not able to fit everything in. But Ideally, you can reduce the size if necessary so that we can have everything in one email. That will facilitate the fastest review and ensure that we do get your whole application. Any other way, it's possible that it won't be processed. So if you're unsure about that, I would default to paper.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in just to let people know, the format that you see the application in was designed by the company that's going to be processing the application. So they designed it in that format to make it, as efficient as possible for them to review everything. And so because obviously we want to get these out to you as fast as we can. So that's just the reason why we're kind of, hoping that we want you to use that one format. Obviously, if you can't, that's why we're allowing for a paper drop-off as well next Tuesday here at the administration building, which is 55 East Court Street in Doylestown. And it's the Court Street entrance. I think Deanna will be at. But
yes,
yeah, that's why we're encouraging you to use that specific format, because it is the format the company designed so that they can quickly move through everything.
Cool. I see somebody raise their hand for a question, and the participants, we're not taking any questions verbally, but if you want to send it to, still, the email again is ertf@buckscounty.org. I have one more question here. I have submitted for every program so far. What is a W-9? I'm not familiar. Sorry for a simple question. No simple questions, but what is a W-9?
The W-9 is a form that captures your EIN information, other identifying information about your company. It'll have your signature on it, and it's necessary for us to disperse funds. If you're not sure about it, I think if you just Google W-9, it will come up with the latest version. The version you want to use is the one that would read revised October of 2018, and it should be information you would readily have available, so you could just print it out, sign it. If you don't have one on hand, many businesses will. You can print it out, sign it, scan it, and that'll be that attachment.
Okay, all right, that's all the questions I've got here. Stephen, are there any more in the inbox?
No, no more. He's telling me no.
Okay. That's it.
We have received questions so far prior to this webinar about submitting applications early. I would just like to reiterate that the application window is on Tuesday, May 26th. Please reference the top of the application for that window if you are unsure of the hours. Do not submit your application ahead of time. It will only be reviewed if it is submitted within that application window.
And also to reiterate, Deanna, really the best way to contact us is at bucksbacktowork@buckscounty.org. We're trying to respond as quickly as possible. It's better than phone or any other email address. That's how we're using that to really sort through all the questions that come through. Please, if we didn't get to a question or a question comes up as you're reviewing the application, please let us know. The Excel spreadsheet that we mentioned will be posted to the website by the end of the day. It is not currently on there, so if you're looking for it, it'll be right next to the application, and it will be up later. We do appreciate the interest and everyone's involvement in this, and we will do our best to try to move through as quickly as possible to get responses out to businesses. The funding is needed.
And just one note on questions. If you submitted a question but we didn't field it on the call, it might have just been that it was a little bit too specific for the general call, and a response will be provided directly.
Yeah, thank you, John, for saying that. Yeah, and Bucks Back to Work, buckscounty.com, .org, sorry. Bucks Back to Work at buckscounty.org. That is the email to send for some of those specific questions you might have. As you heard, we are looking just for that one day. You have time now, obviously, to gather whatever documents you need to get, figure out what it is you need to sort of plug in. If you need to use that Excel spreadsheet, that's there for you. If you need to ask a specific question, you have time to do that between now and Tuesday, and you get everything sort of scanned, ready to go, and then Tuesday morning, or you can wake up and send that right away, and sort of know that you've done it, and you can kind of exhale. But again, this is not a first come, first serve. That was a question somebody asked me specifically earlier today because they had applied for other things and found out that the money was gone by the time they put their application in. This is not first come, first serve. Everybody will be judged based on the information you put in. I do also want to say that last page that Deanna referenced, the statements, please read carefully through those. There are some specific statements that you are signing that you comply with and agree with. The county does have a fraud law. Okay, the false claims, you see it there in the first bullet. The Bucks False Claims Ordinance. That false claims ordinance is basically if you are signing this document and something in these bullets or you've entered information that is not accurate, and I don't mean shouldn't say not accurate. If you're entered information that you know is not correct, and you know you may even get the grant if we find out that that has happened. You will be brought into court and you will be forced to return all of that money. So we are very conscious of the fact that this is money we're trying to help people out with, and we're doing our best to help people. We want to make sure that the people who deserve it are getting it. We're going to be doing multiple rounds of this. As I said earlier, you file this application, we're going to hold on to it. It will be secured. Certainly if there is a right to know request, that will not include things like your social security number or details like that. So that's not going to be, that would never be revealed. That wouldn't be allowed to be go out. Certainly your business names probably would be subject to that right to know request, and maybe some other information. But some of that real private information you don't have to worry about. The company we are using is a company that handles real estate transactions. They are used to handling things that are sensitive information, confidential information, and keeping privacy. The county does that as well. But we want to make sure that people are getting this information, by getting the grant, are the ones that we're helping. And the application you submit, we will hold on to for a second round, maybe possibly even a third round. You may be contacted to give some more up-to-date information regarding, a couple of weeks have gone by since the application, but you won't have to do a whole submission again. So, John, I don't know if we got any final questions that came in.
Nope, it doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Unless Steve has any.
Okay. Well, we certainly, hope this has been helpful. I want to thank again Jeff Fields and Deanna for all the work they put into this. They really did a tremendous amount of work over the last couple of weeks, doing research, designing this, working with the team the team they have, and also working with the company that we hired. Thank you to Jon Mercer for his work in helping to coordinate this, and my assistant Stephen for getting this together, and Mike Gallagher from our IT department, Eric Nake, part of the Director of Special Projects here at the county, doing a lot of work getting all this together. This is a team effort here at the county. We're doing our best to help you, and certainly share this this information you have here. This will be posted. So again, if you want to go back and look at it again, you missed something, you can replay this and hear the questions over again, hear the information over again. You can share it with other people who might be interested in this grant. And again, reach out to Bucks Back to Work at buckscounty.org if you have any specific questions. So thank you very much, and hope everybody has a good weekend.
Thanks, Bob.